Welcome to the show, the Dr. Artist Show. I'm your host, Dr. Brian Artist, and live with me today is going to be Dr. Edward Group, the stud, the myth, the legend, who's been helping to make sense of life's insanity at times, even in the realms of health, spiritually, emotionally, physically, and with his institutes and his website and his clinics. So I can't wait to introduce my audiences all to make sure they know who he is, what I've enjoyed learning over the years from him. And so we're going to spend some time with him today, which is going to be exciting. And that's information we're going to share and discuss. Please share this with as many people as you know, because there are very few individuals. We were talking about this off air. There's very few of us that are continuing to try to wake people up with truths that are very simple to articulate. You can grasp, take, instill into your own lives, implement in your own lives, and see improvements in every aspect of your life. And that is really what we've been dedicated to. All right, so let's get the sponsors introduced for our show here today. That will be mypillow.com. Go to mypillow.com. You can save 66% off using the promo code DOCTOR on any items you buy there. That's the promo code for our audiences. The NorthTexasHealingCenter.com. Go to NorthTexasHealingCenter.com. That's my previous clinic I sold in 2018. The doctors there are trained professionals taking care of people around the world in multiple countries. When I left, we had 16 countries represented as patients that came to this practice for me to help them. So they can help you via telemedicine all around the world find an answer to your symptoms. And then also Brighteon.tv is an actual sponsor for our show. Thanks to Mike Adams and all that he does. The Health Ranger, save 5% off anything there you purchase that you can't find at mypillow.com. Go to brighteonstore.com and put in the promo code DOCTOR, and that will actually help you save some money there also. And then graithcare.com. Let's put that one up. Graithcare.com. Here's the new promo there. QR code, scan it. The promo discount code for advocacy work on your behalf, either if you're in a hospital, outside of a hospital, and just want to make improvements and get off drugs. These coaches and advocates are there to help you with that. Go to graithcare.com, use that QR code, use the discount code ARTIST, save 10% off right away on any enrollment into advocacy help there. And it is absolutely certain. I was on a 3-hour phone call, and Priscilla Romans, the founder of this group, was on that call today. Me, Dr. Judy Mikovits, Jim Thorpe, and others were on this call. John Cullen. Priscilla Romans got on there and said, it's worse than you guys can even imagine, dealing one-on-one with ICUs and hospitals around the country. Still, it is not getting better. It's only getting worse. And there are things we're going to discuss in the next follow-up interview with Priscilla Romans here that you'll see this week, which will be great. But anyway, graithcare.com is there. They're doing a great job. Graith, just in case you're listening, is a combination of two names. Her daughters, Grace and Faith. So just put those two together, and you get graithcare.com. Okay, good. All right, let's welcome to the show. Everyone's been waiting for this one. It's Edward Group. All right, Edward, say hi, Doc, to the world.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. I mean, you're amazing. I love your research. The fact that you've been helping people so many years. It's an honor to be on your show today. It's an honor to get to know you. And it's just, for me and for all of us, our mission is to help as many people as we can, and to help wake up people, and to help educate people. So I'm excited about being on the show today.
Well, I'm super thrilled too. I've seen your face on many talks and seminars that you've been a part of, like the Truth About Cancer series with the Bollingers. I've seen you speak there many times. By the time I retired in 2018 from practice and sold my practices, I wasn't actually doing anything in the media whatsoever. I was lecturing to only my patients, taking care of them, raising my 5 kids. That was really just what life was all consuming. But it's been great to meet people like you, Dr. Tenpenny, ever since, sharing stages with him all around the country. Dr. Buttar at his advanced medicine conference you and I were a part of there in San Antonio a couple months ago. It's been great to actually interact with these people and share a platform in any way at all that allows us to reach audiences to educate them on what truth is, because it's been so disconcerting to many of us, the outright lies that have been perpetrated, not just in medicine, but blatantly stripping your liberties and freedoms of all aspects of your life from you and trying to control what you think, how you behave, how you feel, nonstop. That's been a barrage that we've been unfolding for the masses continuously for years. So, Dr. Group, what I would like to do is actually do a slight intro to your history. I was reading up on your past a little bit. You lost both of your parents to cancer, is what I read on your site. And this, I would like you to tell the audience how old you were when this happened, and then what was the shift for you, because you became obviously aware that whatever was being used as the treatment for cancer wasn't working, in your parents' behalf anyway, to at least extend their life to where they're still here. And so that loss, that tragic loss, propelled you to go look at the corruptness or the truth behind medical and conventional medicine. And I think that's where it all started for you. My speaking out in May of 2020 in relationship to the pandemic really didn't have a lot to do with my health past. It was they killed my father-in-law with ill-advised hospital protocols in February of 2020, just 3 months before Anthony Fauci declared remdesivir the only drug to treat all COVID patients in America. And I recognized from the research papers that he was hyperlinking in his memo on the NIH's website that he was flat out lying to everybody. And all you got to do is look at the charts and read what the authors wrote in the studies, and you realize that this was not found to be the most safe and effective drug in each of these trials. It was actually found and deemed to be the most deadly and least effective drug in each of those trials. So for a health official of any kind like Dr. Anthony Fauci, as one of the heads of the department in the NIH, I was pissed. And I just couldn't believe he was lying to so many people. And I just had to make sure as many people as possible didn't experience the tragedy I experienced emotionally and physically with my wife's family and my own personal experience, losing somebody who did not need to die then. So, Dr. Group, take it away. I want you to give us a little bit about your background. I love learning people's stories. It actually, I think, was one of the things that made my office so successful is I actually loved learning about people's lives and took a very real interest in what they've accomplished, experienced, seen, witnessed, because I think, if anything, we can learn from other people's experiences. And that's what really, truly, I believe, wakes people up. So let's wake them up to who you are and talk about your experience with your parents.
Okay, well, my dad was actually a inventor of plastics, let's say PVC plastics and phthalates, and he went to Columbia University. He was from New York, and then he went to Exxon. It used to be Esso back then before it was Exxon. And so he was exposed to a lot of breathing in a lot of plastics and exposed to a lot of plastics. And ultimately, I was one of those guys that was just in school for 12 years in multiple different colleges because I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. And partly because of that is when I was growing up, I was having a lot of visions and had written down probably close to 30 inventions by the time I was 18 that would just come to me. And so my mom was an alcoholic and my dad was a workaholic. So very little time that I have to spend with my dad. And so I was really kind of growing up by myself. I was the oldest son, but then also trying to take care of my mom, who was a pretty bad alcoholic at the time. And so we were in counseling all the time, we family counseling and all that. And thank God back then they didn't put me on Ritalin or any type of drugs like that. But no one could understand what I was talking about. I had this desire to and connection with nature and was able to, through doing meditation and stuff at an early age and just getting these visions, and nobody could really understand me. And then later on, I was actually working with a psychiatrist or whatever. I mean, somebody that was just a counselor, and they were like, "Have you heard of the Indigo Children?" I said, "Indigo Children? What's that?" I said, "Well, let me show you what Indigo Children are." And so they went in and started showing me, "Is this you? Is this you? Is this you? Is this you?" And it's very similar to the diagnosis of an autistic child, or some child that would be diagnosed with ADD or ADHD. And basically what happens is children have been being born into the world from since I would say probably the early 1960s, that have had very powerful extra strands of DNA and very powerful telepathic powers, and just they're being born in to raise the consciousness of the planet. Because ultimately, I believe the reason we're all here is to become enlightened beings. It's like every religious text out there says the kingdom of heaven is within, but nobody actually teaches you how to access the kingdom of heaven within. But regardless of that, once I learned that, all these different children were being born in, that was kind of my first introduction to something outside of what I've been taught, outside of the medical community. It was kind of metaphysical in a way, and it kind of opened my mind to think in other directions.
So I want to ask real quick. I want to ask real quick. Your mom being an alcoholic and your dad being a workaholic, were these counseling sessions you were going to that you mentioned out of the bat, was that out of recognition there was something wrong with you per your parents? Were you getting in trouble? Was it just your visions were disturbing and they were like, this isn't normal. I'm not having these things. Let's go see what's wrong with our kid. What was the
Yeah,
reason for
it
the
was a
counseling?
combination of everything. Actually, I was one of those crazy kids that was getting into trouble because I felt like I hated school, which is another sign of these type of children.
Oh, I
They don't
hated school.
work well in school. They know they're more intuitive and they go with their gut feeling and they just think school is stupid. Like it's like you're like, why am I learning this? Especially with math, I was like, why am I even learning this? Now, I understand, yeah, you have to have a little bit of math, but it wasn't. It was me. It was, but it was also the family unit together that we were trying to create a stronger family unit. So it really did help. Actually, a lot of times we got from an early age, right? I was like learning personal development, and it's become really a big part of my life is personal development, spiritual development, and health development, and just becoming a better person all around, becoming better spiritually, becoming better physically, becoming better mentally, and teaching. And the true definition of a doctor is a teacher, not a prescriber. So my dad actually died or before I had any knowledge of cancer or anything like that. I think he was like 50 years old, and I can't remember how old I am. I don't have really that good a memory of the past because I try to live in the now. But what
So
really
your
got me,
forgetting is intentional?
maybe so, maybe so. I just, some people can remember every single detail, and for me, it's just like I just kind of forget about it and
I
push it
think it's
aside.
awesome. I think it's awesome.
But the big thing that came from me, I started college and I wanted to be a lawyer, but I got so bored learning all the cases in the first year. Then I started going into healthcare and kinesiology and health management and all kinds of other things. And honestly, I still had a hard time making up my mind what I wanted to do. But then I finally decided I wanted to be a heart surgeon. This was years after my dad had passed. My mom was not actually sick yet. And this is how the universe works. I'm about to take my MCATs to apply to medical school to be a heart surgeon. I go to a dinner. There's a guy sitting next to me who is a naturopathic doctor, who was an MD actually, but turned into more of a naturopathic doctor. And he's sitting next to me, and we get in an argument at the table. And he's telling me that he's starting this cancer research team, and he goes off and basically says, all about the pharmaceutical industry, all about the oil and gas industry, about the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds. I mean, I got a download of the alternative truth in like an hour, and I'm just blown away because I was open-minded at the time, yes, but it was just like wow, 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 and it was just crazy. And I was like, well, wait a second, I've had all this pre-med training, biochemistry. At that time I had a minor in chemistry, and I've been all through all these health courses. All they've done is teach us about pharmaceuticals, how we have all the money going in, the best scientists developing all these things. And he said, have you ever looked at the side effects, or have you ever looked at what happens when you take a pharmaceutical? Because really all pharmaceuticals are doing is covering up a symptom. They're not actually fixing it. They're not addressing the root cause of the situation. And I was like, I thought about it. And I was like, no, they didn't say anything about that. Well, anyway, he said he was putting together a cancer research team at the time. And this was in the 90s, like 1995. This is when the internet was barely coming out. I'm talking 28K modem. There was zero information online at the time. And I went home and I couldn't get it out of my head. I just kept getting that pounding in my head of him saying that I'm going into an industry that's going to be killing people. Even though I wanted to be a heart surgeon saving lives, he kept saying, you're going into an industry that's killing people. And so about 2 days later, I woke up and I went to the library and I started breaking down pharmaceuticals. And it didn't take me but more than 4 hours to realize that everything I'd been taught about big, pharmaceuticals and medications healing the body was completely wrong. And I saw it. I mean, I saw the chemical reactions, how it was working in the biochemistry of the body, and I was just blown away to the point where I was crying in the car on the way home from the library because I was like, what am I going to do now? I'm like literally about to apply for my MCAT. And there's no way after seeing this and experiencing this that I can even go on. And I remember in the car where all of a sudden my hands rose off the steering wheel and I went into another dimension. Everything turned white. And I heard this sound, this voice say, you can heal with your hands, you can heal with natural medicine, you can heal with God's medicine, heal with my medicine, heal with God's medicine. But it seemed like I was there for like 10 minutes. I don't know how long I was actually there, but when I snapped back in and grabbed the steering wheel, I was about 6 or 7 miles down the road. So the car was literally driving itself for 6, my foot was still on the gas in my car, and I had no recollection really of that. So I called the guy up and I said, hey, you still looking for people to be on your research team, your cancer research team? It was a root cause of disease and cancer, natural cancer research team. And it just so happens he had ties with MD Anderson and some of the cancer hospitals, because in the mid-90s, they were launching their CAM programs, which were the complementary alternative medicine programs. And they were looking for research groups to give them information on any type of alternative medicines or anything like that they could bring in. Obviously, it was all a joke, but I joined his team. And that was the beginning. So this is a very interesting story. He had some pretty good connections. I don't know how he had them, but we started going to all these underground cancer conventions in the mid-90s. So I was, working with Burton Goldberg and, Gerson, and back then Lee Cowden was back there. There's still a lot of people today that were still around back in 20 something years ago, going to these underground conventions. That's where I learned about urotherapy from a guy named Dr. Jesse Partridge. We learned about everything: Halion 951, Gastanesin 714X. I mean, we were looking at all this stuff. And then our research team started getting more popular through all these, because we were documenting and talking to all these doctors and saying, what are you using for cancer? What are you using? What's the root cause? And we were interviewing everybody. So we had built a pretty good database, especially after about 6 months. But this went on for probably 1.5 to 2 years. And we were at that point in time pretty confident that we knew the root cause of all disease, not only cancer, but then also we had solutions to everything as well. And we were asked to join an exclusive Royal Raymond Rife team at the time. And that was also with Barry Lyons, who wrote The Cancer Cure That Worked. So we had access to Rife's, all of the stuff that was taken out of Rife's laboratory that wasn't confiscated by the government. And I owned all of Rife's stuff up until a couple years ago when I donated it to Steve Ross at the World Research Foundation, including Rife's original lab manual, which I kept and is still available for people to view. So we had that kind of access to documentation. So we studied all the different things that Rife was doing. We looked at the frequencies. We started looking at the machines that were available and coming out, but nobody was doing an original machine like Rife had, with the platinum electrodes, the helium gas, and the custom quartz glass. I mean, most people were coming out with leaded glass machines. They were using argon and neon. And for the most part, it was working for different types of harmful organisms, but it wasn't working for cancer. So then we we moved over and got invited to the Tesla research team at that time. And we started looking at Tesla's health technology, which most people don't understand, that Tesla was very, very into health. Tesla had an understudy by the guy by the name of Arthur Matthews. Arthur Matthews, no, very few people know this. Arthur Matthews was Tesla's understudy. He came to him when he was 16 years old. It was basically like Tesla's son. He spent all the time with him, and after Tesla died, he wrote a book called The Wall of Light. It's a very rare book, and if you get it, you'll be blown away because it's kind of an underground secret autobiography of Tesla. He talks about how him and Tesla would go out to the ranch and the spaceship would land, and then they would go to Venus, and then they would get technology and they would come back. I mean, and how Tesla one day built this little device and pointed at the moon, and then gold started coming out of one end of it. I mean, just fascinating stuff. Well, Tesla's Arthur Matthews' understudy was a guy named George Freibach. So we were working with the Tesla health technology back in the mid 90s, and we ended up with two of Tesla's original recipes. One is Tesla is the original inventor of Ozol, Ozol. You can look it up online. That is the compound that if you ozonate olive oil enough at a certain temperature and a certain pressure, will turn completely into a white, thick paste called Ozol. Most people out there that are doing ozonated olive oil are not even coming close to Tesla's original Ozol. That's why we have the largest ozone production facility in the United States at our manufacturing facility in Phoenix, and we produce Tesla's original Ozol in bottles, in Myron glass bottles. But the other thing, the big thing that Tesla told Arthur and Arthur told George was that he had a vision into the future, and he said that he saw people dying and becoming sick because of their guts. Like basically the food they were eating, the air they were breathing, all the stuff that was going into their guts is the first exposure point of disease. Like all disease starts in the gut, and then all health begins in the gut. So Tesla, before he died, he said, I want to develop something that people can take in the future, something that people can use that's going to produce and release a monatomic oxygen, which is a reactive oxygen species. And according to science, even today, it's impossible to stabilize ozone, or it's impossible to stabilize a reactive oxygen species. So they gave the recipe to me. They gave the formula to me, and the formula was like 80% complete. I built a 40-foot shipping container, and I built a lab out there because my dad was a chemist, and I got my first chemistry set when I was 1. And I had a good background in chemistry. So it took me about probably 2 or 3 years to piece it all together. And I almost literally blew myself up a couple times because you have to use high concentrations of ozone, pressurized at very, very cold temperatures and stuff like that. So it's almost like creating a bomb. But anyway, Tesla created, what he did was he told Arthur this, and he said, my legacy, I want to create something for the future that's going to help millions of people. And so what he did was he met with a guy named Dr. Eugene Bloss in 1898. And in 1898, they created the first oxygen-based intestinal cleanser, and they called it Homozone. Well, back then they had another name for it, and he also invented the Vapozone machine, which was actually sold at Sears Roebuck and Company up until the 30s, because the AMA basically shut all the healing spas down and all the practitioners down by 1929, roughly. So basically, he developed an ultimate oxygen-based intestinal cleanser, and that's what our oxy powder formula is. So that's basically Tesla's original formula. So that during that process is when my mom died, and when my mom had cancer, and during the process of when we were learning all this stuff. So I had not learned everything that I needed to know to treat my mother by the time she had died. Right after she died is when we were just starting all this research, and unfortunately, but everything happens for a reason, right? And after that, then we finished our research. We came back, presented it. Nobody, we basically got shut down. Black cars followed us around, blah, blah, blah. We were renegades. We just said, you know what? We have the answer. We have so much stuff. We're going to open up our own cancer clinic. We opened up a cancer clinic in 1998 in Houston. Very shortly after that, and this goes back to what you just said about listening to people, because the protocol that we learned from all these doctors is the first thing that you do when you see patients when they come in is you listen to them. This is the one thing that we learned that nobody from some of these other doctors that nobody else was doing. I'll give you an example. When we had a patient come in, the first thing we would do is sit down with them and we would say, we're here for you. We're here to listen to you. Tell us about what's going on. And they would go on and on and on for an hour to 2 hours. And we would be mindful, being present in the moment, listening to them. And then they would get done. And that is the first step of the healing process, actually. Then they would look at me and say, you know what? I've been to 10, 15 different doctors because our clinic only saw the last people that had already been seen by all the other doctors and no one could help them. Then they would come to us and they would say, you know, you're the first person that's actually listened to me and heard me. And in reality, that's the biggest issue with relationships, husbands, wives, coworkers, brothers, sisters. One person, usually the woman, doesn't feel like they're being heard or listened to. And so once they said, you know what, I feel so much better already. I feel so close to you already because you actually listened to me. That healing process, they just regurgitated all that stuff and they feel that finally somebody actually heard them and listened to them. That's step one of the healing process. Step two that we did was say to them, what would you like to know why you have cancer? Has anyone explained to you why you have cancer? Has anyone explained to you why you have arthritis, degenerative, any degenerative disease for that matter? And they would say no. We say, so you've been to 20 different doctors and no one's even explained to you why you have the condition you have? And they would say no. It's like, well, don't you think you need to understand why you have the condition before you treat it? It's like, I'm not going to repair the electricity in my home without learning about electricity because I'm probably going to get shocked and die. So then we would say, would you like to learn why you have cancer? And then we said yes. And then we would explain to them the root cause of disease. And basically we would just say all disease and all cancer is caused by two things: a toxic external environment and a toxic internal environment. Now, we would explain this in detail, but ultimately the external environment would be what you're watching on TV, what you're reading, the EMFs, the mold in your house, the air fresheners in your home, the toxic cookware, the toxic memory foam mattress, the friends you're hanging out with, anything externally that's going to bring your vibrational frequency down. Because when you get down to the core structure of why we have illness and disease, just like Tesla and Einstein said, everything is vibration and energy. So what you're doing, are you lowering your vibrational frequencies every day, or are you raising your vibrational frequencies every day? And then, of course, we would go in detail with them. We would usually spend 3 hours explaining all this to them and say, now let's talk about your internal body. These are the foods that you're eating, what you're drinking, all these chemicals and toxins and GMO foods and fluoride and the water and the poisons in the water. And basically go through that whole list and say, now, do you understand why you have cancer? And then when they say yes, at that point, you say, okay, the first step now is to detoxify you and to clean you out because you have all this stuff inside your body. Every practitioner should start with this same exact procedure when they're working with any patient. And then we would say, okay, we need to clean and heal your gut. Second, we need to clean and flush your liver. Third, we need to get all the harmful organisms and parasites out of your body. Fifth, we need to get all the chemicals and heavy metals out of your body. And once we would run them through all of those cleansing procedures, and you can use other devices, Rife machine, you can use whatever you want. But the first step is always detoxifying the body and getting them to the point where they can actually start absorbing things and utilizing things and having the bioavailability. And honestly, I mean, the main component that we saw treating every single disease that you can imagine was parasites. I mean, to me, it's like there is such an epidemic with fungus and mold. People hear parasites and think worms, but a parasite, according to definition, is anything that lives off of a host mechanism. That could be bacteria, mycoplasms, all kinds of stuff. And I've got documentations from Royal Raymond Rife that he said there's a whole nother world when you get to 100,000x. Like we think we know what organisms are living in our body. There's a whole nother world of organisms behind that we haven't even identified. And if we even go to 500,000x, there's probably a whole nother level of parasites and harmful organisms at that level. So we're just touching the surface of what's happening in the body, but cleansing and detoxification is the number one thing that we were focused on until we got really popular. And we had people from the royal family that came to us, and then we started turning into not only a cancer clinic but a degenerative disease clinic. And then our friends at the FDA decided that we were getting too big and we were actually helping people, and decided to come and raid our facility. And basically they shut us down. Interesting story with that, though, is they also banned me from ever talking about or utilizing MMS, because it wasn't MMS back in the day. It was actually called Oxy E100 and Halox. There was two companies before Jim Humble created MMS. We were all using either one or two of these products, either Oxy E100 or Halox. Jim came along and said, wow, this is really cool. Because the Halox company had this thick of testimonials from even in the 80s when it was used. Chlorine dioxide solution was used even, going back 70s and 80s. It wasn't something new when MMS came out. And then I ended up working with Jim. I was in his first documentary because we were using MMS at our we were using Halox. That was before it was MMX. We were using Oxy E100 in our clinics. It was working incredibly well. It's a very powerful product. And then Jim decided to really market it everywhere. And that's when I got involved with him, and we, did the first documentary on MMS together. That was probably in the early 2000s. And I was the first website to actually sell Jim Humble's MMS. And it was on the website. So that's why apparently that's what they were saying. That's why I got rated, but the whole cancer thing and everything else was part of it as well. So from that time forward, it's been about educating people on the root cause of disease, about educating people on how to properly cleanse their body, and educating people on how to clean up their external environment and clean up their internal environment. Because like I said earlier, our job is to teach people how to become their own doctors, teach people how to heal themselves.
So there's a few basic principles, and I appreciate you sharing that. I could just let you roll for days because it sounds like you're me talking. I'm like, wow, these are all the principles that I've recognized and been awakened to for decades now. But one of the things I used to say, and I want to make sure that I compliment you and tell the audiences, absolutely, I agree on everything that you've said. That's important for me. But I want to make something very clear. When we went through school, we learned that 80% of all diagnoses of a patient stem from the history that's taken from the patient. So if you're not listening to them and you don't have every single question on the planet you can think of to cover all your bases of that person's personal history to be able to get to the diagnosis from your list of differential possibility diagnoses, you have to be a great doctor, you have to listen to your patients. So that was always the first thing. And I actually spent a lot of money, Dr. Group, going to communication seminars on the weekends. After the first year of practice, I was trying to figure out how can I be a greater doctor. And it really boiled down to I needed to improve my listening. And so I actually would go pay tens of thousands of dollars to do communication courses to learn how to listen and then be able to articulate back to the person that they were heard. And I spent a lot of time and energy and money doing that because I wanted to be great for my patients. So number one was I had to be a good listener. So I had to learn how to do that because I was caught up in my own head all the time. I could hear my thoughts running me as they were talking, and I just wanted to be able to hear them. And I have heard, just like you said, I always was impressed by this. People constantly said, every day. It feels like you're the first doctor that's ever listened to me. I heard that over and over and over, and I would go like this. Well, I probably am. I don't know very many other doctors that are paying to go learn how to listen, and I did. And it was just my own intention to try to be as great of a listener as possible. So listening to your patients is number one. And then number two, to try to articulate to people to get them to recognize that not everything in health and symptoms can be correlated that you need to drug it or cut it out to solve the problem. So this is how I did it. And you did a great job, Dr. Group. I used to do this with patients. I'd have them sit down and as a part of their intake forms, write down every medication they've been prescribed that they were currently on. And I would go like this. So, Betty, you've been diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. And then I'd go like this. What are your medical doctors telling you to take? Or what are they doing for you? And they would go, they've prescribed to me prednisone and methotrexate. And I'd go, okay, great. How long do you have to stay on that? And they'd go, well, forever. And I'd go like this. Okay, so can I ask you a question? Do you personally believe that your joints started hurting 6 years ago, 7 years ago, because your body was deficient in prednisone and methotrexate? Yeah. They would go just like that. They'd start laughing. And they'd go, well, no. And I'd go, well, then why are you swallowing it every day? Like for the rest of your life, why would you swallow something if that's not what's causing your symptoms? Wouldn't it be great to know if it wasn't those two drugs that you were deficient in all of a sudden? Wouldn't it be great to know what caused your symptoms to start 6 months ago or 6 years ago or 10 years ago, 20 years ago? And they'd go, yes. And I'd go, there was a period of your life, right, where you didn't have these symptoms? And they'd go, yes. And I'd go, wouldn't you like to know, and wouldn't it be miraculous to find out what changed in your body to cause the pain all of a sudden? Yes. That's chronically there? Yes. Well, do you want me to tell you what it is? And they'd go, yes. And then we'd go through our exam and our evaluation, and detox was a major part of that. But I just want you to know I used to do this with people all the time. I used to, in any presentations I did locally, I'd go like this. Raise your hand if you believe that you have migraine headaches because you're deficient in Advil or Tylenol. And then they'd all laugh, and I'd go, well, then why are you popping those pills every time your headache starts? I mean, there are signs and symptoms that we carry when we're low on food, like shaky, we get hypoglycemic, shaky, headaches, irritable. I said, there are symptoms, and then when you eat and the blood sugar improves, you feel better. I said, if these are your symptoms and they can be handled with food, and there's also symptoms of being dehydrated, headaches, high blood pressure, all kinds of stuff. You've solved that by putting water and nutrients back into the body. So if those symptoms aren't caused by a deficiency, why are we pumping drugs into the body for the rest of your life? This is exactly how I used to break the narrative, and all of a sudden they'd go like this. Will you please tell me what's wrong with me? Yes. Would you like to learn? Yes, because if you didn't have the symptoms anymore, you won't need the drugs. And they'll go, oh, that makes total sense. I know, it's amazing, isn't it? Brilliant. And then I want you to know that I actually was on your site, and you have some great 3-minute little intro videos to your longer lectures or I don't know what you're creating, videos to educate people on various topics. One of those I watched because I'm just fascinated by them. Dr. Group, 77% of every autoimmune case I ever saw had parasites. And it didn't matter what the autoimmune condition was they were diagnosed with, diabetes. It didn't matter if it was rheumatoid arthritis, fibromyalgia, lupus, Sjogren's. It didn't matter. 77% of all of them for 20 years had parasites. So I focused on helping people learn the truth about parasites. And this is one of the things I have found really fun over the last 2.5 years, educating medical doctors who are asking me to come to conferences with them and educate the audiences and them on the hospital protocols and drugs and all the research I've done. It's really fun to go like this. Wait till you learn all the other lies the medical profession has told you. I can't wait to outline those for you. And they'd go like what? And I'd go like, for example, parasites represent almost all cancers. And you're misdiagnosing these people. And at least 75% of all autoimmune cases I've ever seen are actually parasites. And you can clear those out in 2 or 3 months, and all their symptoms disappear. Cancers disappear. It's just a great fraud and lie you've all been told. And it's been very, very exciting. And out of the gate, I'll just go ahead and mention, for anyone out there who has been diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, an intestinal disease like Crohn's, celiac, ulcerative colitis, IBS, C, D, M, whatever you want to call it. Any of you have been diagnosed with those things, you most likely have parasites. And if you're listening to me and you say to yourself, but my medical doctor actually did an exam and looked for parasites, they ran a fecal test. I'm just going to tell you right now, if that test ran through either one of these labs, LabCorp or Genova Labs, they call those comprehensive parasite stool tests, and they are not. They are only looking for protozoa parasites, and it's only one of hundreds of thousands of protozoa that LabCorp tests for. And when it comes back negative, they'll go, you don't have parasites, because the medical doctors don't know that there's other parasites that could be looked for. Hundreds of thousands of them. And then if you go to Genova Labs, they actually will test for two types of protozoa type parasites, which are single cell organisms. And those protozoa type parasites, those are the only ones they're looking for. And if they don't see either one of those two, they'll tell you you don't have any parasites. And that is absolutely fraudulent and not accurate. There are four major types of parasites: flukes, protozoa, nematodes, and tapeworms. And everyone, 90% of all human beings on the planet, have parasites. If you're not aware this is a real issue, go to the CDC's website or any search engine online and type in cdc.gov in the search engine, cdc.gov, and parasites, and look at what the CDC tells you, how big of a problem protozoa parasites alone are in this country. So I constantly am trying to educate people. It's unfortunate medical professionals do not get that education in their university or residence studies. They just don't. In fact, medical doctors in Frisco, Texas, told all my patients here for 20 years to not listen to me because parasites don't exist in America. That's the rationale they come out of school with, and then blab that out to people. And I would go just like this to my patients. So do you believe, Dr. So-and-so, that there's no parasites in this country? And they'd go, well, I don't know who to believe. You tell me I have parasites. They say I don't. And I'd go, all right, so let me ask you a question. Do you believe parasites live in this country? And they'd go, I don't know. And I'd go like this. Have you ever had a dog or cat? Yes. Have you ever taken that dog or cat to a veterinarian? Yes. Have they ever treated your dog or cat for parasites? Like heartworms? Oh, yeah, all the time. Is not every dog and cat in America treated for parasites? It's so blatantly moronic for any medical professional around the world to actually say, there's no parasites in America, like there's some invisible force field around America that as they imagine, okay, now you might tell me I'm wrong, Dr. Group. Maybe Tesla or Rife have built a machine that creates a magical force field of frequencies at the borders of America that when a parasite swims across the water or gets transported by trucks or boats on fish and sushi, maybe, just maybe, as they scan through the borders, there's this invisible force field that kills all parasites. But I'm not aware of such, because every animal in America is being treated for parasites, and they all have zoonotic tendencies. And they are published in veterinarian clinics that these parasites will transfer from your dog and cat right into you. And 90% of all human beings around the world do have them. So anyway, these are some of the things that Dr. Grib is talking about that I'm fascinated by, that I have found myself finding in clinical practice through muscle testing, applied kinesiology, energy work, acupuncture, you name it, chiropractic. There are a lot of things that can cause illness and disease. It is not the lack of a pill or a need for a organ to be removed typically. That is not the case. All right. Anyway, Dr. Group, I just wanted you to know I acknowledge all of those truths. And you take
just like you said about diagnosis, we found an interesting statistic when we were working with people that would come in with different types of conditions, and they would bring their diagnosis and their symptoms from their doctor and say, this is what my doctor diagnosed me with, and these are all the symptoms I'm experiencing. And then what we would do is take them through the intestinal cleanse and health program, the liver and gallbladder cleanse, the parasite cleanse, and the chemical and heavy metal cleanse. And then we would go back over and do another history with them. And a lot of the times, probably 70 to 80% of the time, they would have a different diagnosis or different symptoms showing up. So basically, it was like an onion. And what that told us is how many people are being diagnosed with the wrong thing, because as that onion peels back and it starts getting deeper and deeper to what's really going on in their body, that's what's really going on. So, I mean, I would say probably a good 60 to 70% of the diagnoses that are done through the allopathic model are most likely wrong. That's not the real issue. The real issue is the parasites and the chemicals and everything. And just so happens, I started looking into this years ago with the cleansing. So we know the gut, the liver, the parasites, and the chemical and heavy metals. Does the medical allopathic model have any testing methodology for the gut, the liver, parasites, or chemicals and heavy metals? The four things that get congested and start kicking off the root cause of all disease, there's really no test for them. I spoke to tons of gastroenterologists over the years, and they're like, well, we were just taught the anatomy of the gut. They know nothing about the microbiome. They know nothing about how stress and parasympathetic and sympathetic and all this other stuff happens, and leaky gut syndrome and all the things that can go on in the gut. And there's no testing. I'm not talking about functional medicine, chiropractic, and we have some testing, but standard allopathic model still to today, there is no real testing for colonoscopy maybe, but that's horrible anyway. And most of the issues start in the small intestine. There's no real testing for the gut health to determine, your amount of candida in there or this or that. And then you go to the liver, like Hulda Clark. I mean, the flukes in the liver, we used to work with their programs and cleansing people's liver out. And then after we did like over 500,000 liver cleanses with people, we started analyzing the data and found out that each liver cleanse, and we started looking and analyzing data from all the other like herbal liver cleanses and stuff. And we found that the olive oil is a big component to doing a liver cleanse the right way, because it repairs and cleans and pushes out about 15% of the stuff in your liver. So I personally believe right now that the whole population on the planet right now, their livers are not functioning above 25%. I've studied liver pathologies and we have kids with cirrhosis and fatty liver right now. And when the liver is working below 80% is when you start getting symptoms and diseases. And not only the flukes, but the liver's detoxification pathways aren't able to operate. So we didn't know that until we looked at all the data. And then we started saying, wow. So if your liver's, there's no test for liver in allopathic either. I mean, it's ridiculous. They have GGT, AST, ALT, or whatever. It doesn't tell you anything. It doesn't tell you the level of efficacy of the detoxification pathways. It doesn't tell you if there's any worms or flukes or anything like that in your liver. It doesn't determine the cells, how damaged the cells are in your liver, how fast you're detoxing, the toxicity level in the liver. There's no test for that. There's like you said, limited tests for parasites. I also include mold and candida. I include every harmful organism under the term parasite, because there's just a massive amount of them, and there's no way that they would be able to test for that. And then allopathic medicine doesn't test for chemicals and heavy metals and glyphosate residue and atrazine and all the pesticides and the plastics and all the other stuff that end up accumulating in the body as well.
So I have a question, Dr. Group, and I want to make a statement because I found this just crazy to me. For 20 years, 16,000 patients from 16 different countries. The ones that would come with bowel issues, which you've already talked about, health starts and ends with the gut. And I totally agree, at least physically. The gut, people would come in with these gut problems, autoimmune diseases. For 50 years, I had one lady say that she was diagnosed with Crohn's and ulcerative colitis combo stuff. For 50 years, she's been seeing gastroenterologist specialists. This is not a joke. She had been dealing with chronic diarrhea the whole time, 50 years. And I looked at her and I just said this. Now, what I'm going to expect of you, this is what I said. I'm going to expect you to do something for me. I'm going to see you once a month. But in between those visits, you are required to keep a food journal for me, just like I'm sure the gastroenterologists have done for you. They had you probably keep a food journal. They reviewed what you were putting in your mouth and into your bowels. That's what I'm going to have you do. And I'm just going to tell you right now, if you do not bring that with you on your next appointment, you're going to be kicked out. I need to see what you're putting into your body every day, and you need to report on that food journal, which we'd hand to them, how many bowel movements you're having a day, how many hours of sleep you're achieving, how much water you're drinking. I need to see everything that's going into your mouth and into your body. Dr. Group, I couldn't believe it. Every single gastrointestinal issue I had seen that had been diagnosed, never once did a medical doctor's patient, who was now my patient, had ever told me once, I never heard this once, that their GI specialist actually made them keep a food journal and they wanted to see what they were putting in their mouth every day. And I was like, there's no way that's true, is it? Like, I mean, the bowel's job is to break down food and then absorb nutrients. Like, how do you not go look to see what are they putting in their body? Like, how do you not look to see what's going into the bowels to create this chronic inflammatory condition? All you're going to do is tell people, We need to cut out this section. It looks like it's dying. Like, how do you not look there? I don't understand. To me, it's totally illogical. I cannot even fathom, even if I was untrained, if someone came to me and said, man, I have diarrhea 5 days out of 10 or 5 days out of every 7, I'd go like this. Well, what do you eat every day? Can I see it? What do you think you eat every day? And imagine if on those 5 out of 7 days a week, they ate the same breakfast every day. And on all 5 days when they ate their cornflakes from Kellogg's, they actually had diarrhea every day. Then on the weekends when they had regular breakfast, like bacon, eggs, and whatever, imagine if they didn't have the symptoms then. Then there would possibly be a correlation to start with. I can't believe they don't look there. It's so insane to me. And when they go to look, they actually put you on a colon cleanse to do their colonoscopy. Therefore, you crap out every byproduct of everything you put into your body, and there's nothing there to even look at. I just find some things absurd to me, Dr. Group. To me, I always found that shocking.
It's totally absurd. And if you really do the research behind the microbiome that you're supposed to have in your gut, it's actually very similar to the soil. I mean, a perfect type of soil. And that goes into the ivermectin story. I mean, and there's a conspiracy behind that. It's not a conspiracy, it's actually truth. But when ivermectin was first found, it was found in the soil by a soil-based microorganism. And a long time ago, when you ate the soil, you had the microorganisms, the soil-based microorganisms in the soil that would produce what used to be called avermectin at the time when they developed it. And when that discovery, a lot of this, I've learned a lot since this COVID situation has come out, because I knew about the plan of the agricultural industry to destroy the soil-based microorganisms back in like the 90s, 95. I mean, it was specifically done that way to ruin our boughs. And what happened is the animals then started getting parasites when they killed off through the aluminum-based fertilizers, through the toxic air, and later on through the chemtrails and all the other stuff and the toxic water that they were spraying on all the soils, and the worms were dying, and all the microbiome that was in the soil they killed it off on purpose. They killed it off on purpose so we wouldn't be able, and the animals wouldn't be able anymore to be able to eat it. And when you eat the soil, you get the real soil-based microorganisms in there that secrete avermectin and secrete some other compounds to kill off, because most of the time you're ingesting parasites or you're ingesting these organisms. And if you have a good microbiome and you have soil-based microorganisms in there, they're going to be secreting the things that you need to kill off those microorganisms, to kill off those parasites. It was a planned attack. When you kill the soil, which they did, you killed the microbiome of the gut. And so that's what, over time, that's why all the animals now can't even get the soil-based microorganisms they need. And that's why all the animals have to be dewormed and, with ivermectin and all the other stuff these days. So, I mean, it's a sick system when you look at the manipulation from the oil and gas industry, big pharma, big agriculture, big financial, they're all working together to destroy the ecosystem of the planet, because we're supposed to live in unison with nature. In reality, we have everything that we need to heal ourselves for free. Okay, God has given us all that for free. Clean air, if we have it, sleep, meditation, drinking your own urine. I mean, I might sound crazy, but I mean, I've been doing a lot of research on that as well. I mean, and that to me is like one of the most powerful medicines that we have. I mean, why wouldn't God create a perfect pharmacy within our system that produces exactly what we need to heal ourselves and balance ourselves out every single day? Fasting, for example, is a very powerful way to heal yourself. I mean, there's lots of things that you can do for free that doesn't even require lots of money, that your body can, especially doing affirmations and mental and prayer. All that's been proven. I mean, instantaneous healings, all that. It's just like nowadays we've become so toxic with everything, and they're just putting more and more, especially with the 5Gs, which I released a video on YouTube. Well, the first video I did that I got banned was the Alex Jones show on May 18th, 2000, and I think it was 2021, where we laid out everything they were going to do, the whole pandemic, the vaccine situation, everything. We laid it out on the show. And then after that, I had death threats and everything. And that was the last show that I did on Alex. But during COVID, I actually did a video on what is happening with the 5G in relation to harmful organisms. Most people are not talking about this. If you have mold in your body and you're exposed to 5G, a 400,000% increase in mold proliferation within your body. Let alone, so EMFs, and especially 5G frequencies, reduce the oxygen capacity. They do it does all kinds of bad stuff within your system. So that's another external environment that not too many people are talking about, that is a very serious issue that we're dealing with right now. And it's also why healthy people, like people have been asking me for the last couple months, actually a couple years, but really more this summer, I've gotten more requests from people traveling, and they're like, why are healthy people getting sick? And I'm starting to think back, and I'm like, I've had, the couple times that I've gone to these conventions, I've come back and I've had a little respiratory thing. And all the doctors at the conventions we go to, a good majority of them I work with. So every time there's a big convention and everybody flies out there, like after the convention's over, 2 days after, then I start getting phone calls from all these doctors and everybody. And they're like, hey, can you send me your antidote program? Can you send me your recovery program? Can you overnight it to me? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And I overnight it to them. So I'm sitting here for this has been going on for a couple of years, and I'm thinking, what the heck is going on? These are healthy people. These are doctors, natural doctors. It's the same crew that we hang out with, and a lot of the other people that we've been talking to. Well, I just got back from a month-long vacation in Europe, and I was in Munich, I was in Serbia, I was in Croatia, I was in Slovakia, I was in Budapest, I was in Vienna, I was in Salzburg, I was in Amsterdam. I was on subways, I was on trains, I was on everything. Well, about 2 weeks ago, I started getting a little bit of and for me, like, I don't even want to say sick, but I can feel it. It's like a little nasal congestion, and not even a sore throat, but I can feel it in my, I cough up a little bit of stuff. And so I'm like, okay, this is weird. Okay, this is happening to me. So let me do my research. And first thing I always do is say, why? What is the root cause of me feeling this way right now? And I was like, so I started going back. I said, let's see, how many people have I been exposed to in the last 3 weeks? I started saying, in the airport, the train, the subway, walking down the busy streets. Most of these people, I would say 95% of them have been vaccinated. I said, I estimate that I was in close contact with 150,000 people in 3 weeks. And I'm like, so that means because of the variants and the spike proteins, that pretty much everybody can be putting out a new variant of a spike protein at any time. I could have breathed in over 150,000 variants of spike proteins within 3 weeks. Now, who wouldn't have a little sinus congestion or a little, tickly throat or whatever if they just put themselves in the lion's den or in a snake pit with 1 million vipers and expected not to get bit? So I'm thinking to myself, so I started doing more research, and I'm like, we need to start warning people about this shedding situation that's going on. Shedding is a real deal. Like people are shedding these spike proteins from all over the place. And the more that they're getting the shot, who knows what other things that they're getting. But even healthy people are getting sick. And I just posted something yesterday that now they're finding unvaccinated people are having graphene oxide and nanoparticles showing up in their bloodstream from being around parents or other people that have been vaxxed. So I think we need to be real serious about talking to people about what they can do to counteract these things. And one of the reasons I started talking about urotherapy is because I was working with Judy and everyone. There was 27 doctors on the COVID task force under Trump. I was one of them. Okay, our job was to evaluate all the frontline doctors from all over the world and find out what was working. Okay, that's what we did. We had a direct line to the White House. We were every week. We had a meeting, and we would discuss, amongst ourselves, and then we would report back to the White House what was working. That's why we started talking about chlorine dioxide and zinc and quercetin and iodine and all the things that were working really good. Okay, What fell on my lap was the reports coming from India, because you have to remember that during this pandemic, most of the world didn't have access to zinc. They didn't have access to even hospitals, right? Like, we're spoiled in the US. We can go down to the health food store, order something on Amazon and get it the next day. 90% of the world had nothing. They had no access to hospitals. They had no access to doctors. They had no access to natural medicine, nothing. So in India, we were getting reports of people that were going to these clinics in India and they were drinking their own urine and they were healing themselves in like 72 hours. So I was the one that took on that project because everybody else thought it was crazy. But I had experience with it I've been experiencing with stuff with this for over 20 something years. So I was like, well, that makes total sense. They didn't have money over there, right? What are they going to do? They can't buy anything. Their urine is free. So they started drinking their own urine and they started getting better. Anyway, long story short, all the doctors on the team, we ended up quitting after about a month or two because they weren't listening to us, obviously, and they weren't putting anything out, obviously. So then we started having private meetings. And then the next topic we started talking about was the mRNA and evaluating all of Moderna and Pfizer and all the shots and all that other stuff. And every single doctor on the panel agreed that anyone that took this shot, back then it was just one shot. Now, I mean, who did 3 or 4, but every doctor on the panel agreed that if anyone took this shot, they were going to be dead in 5 years. And I said, I believe there's always a solution for every situation, and I'm going to find that solution. So I spent the last 2 years looking at it for a solution to be able to repair the DNA. Look, stopping or suppressing the spike proteins is not that hard, okay? We have pine needle tea, we have quercetin. You talk about it, your protocol, everything that you're talking about, we can suppress, we can probably maybe stop in some cases, depending on the individual's lifestyle, the stress and all the other stuff that they're going through, the spike protein, okay? The issue is not the spike protein. The issue is the mRNA changing the DNA to produce the spike protein. How are you going to repair the DNA? Quercetin will not repair DNA. It doesn't contain your specific original memory of your DNA. Zinc does not contain your specific memory of your DNA. All of these natural supplements, there's no possible way that they're going to repair your DNA back to its original form. And I even had a conversation with Dr. Cole about this. And I asked him, I said, Dr. Cole, the reason I'm talking about urotherapy is because it's the only thing that has your original memory of your DNA in it. And I feel after 2 years of research, maybe water-only fasting, there's a lot of research on autophagy that doing a long water-only fast, 6 days plus, your body will kick in and your original memory of your DNA will come back and you'll repair your cells, right? The only other thing that I've been able to find that contains the original memory of your DNA is your urine. And so that's why I was coming out and talking about that. And I asked him, I said, Dr. Cole, is there any test out there that we can use to determine the level of damage to someone's DNA if they got the shot, 2 shots, 3 shots, whatever? He said, no. There's no way they're going to release and put all this stuff in the air and all this stuff if there's a test that can justify or show you that. That's why there's no test out there that people can go to and say, well, how many spike proteins do I have? Or what's the level of damage to my DNA? Or, let me take this and let me see if my DNA can be repaired. I mean, we started talking about telomeres, maybe, measuring telomeres and all kinds of other stuff. But in reality, all the stuff that we're all promoting out there, the ivermectin and all this other stuff, is great because it blocks the receptor sites of the spike proteins. However, there's still a big DNA situation here. How do we repair the DNA to where we can take it back to its original memory? And I believe, maybe you know of another thing out there. I mean, we even looked at frequencies like Dr. Horowitz's research on the Solfeggio tones and the 528 frequency. But the 528 frequency can repair the linkage, apparently, but it still, the 528 frequency doesn't contain the original memory of your DNA. So
Oh,
that's another reason why I'm big into educating people about, look, if I, you have the solution inside of you. And it's not like I'm coming out like and saying that. There's 5,000 years worth of research. I actually put all the research up for everybody for free on urotherapyresearch.com so they can go read it themselves. You have stem cells every single day, original memory stem cells. That's been proven, written up in the Journal of Stem Cell Therapy in your urine. You don't even need to go get $25,000 stem cell injections. You can inject, your stem cells right back into you, and they're living, they're live.
well, I want you to.
So, yeah.
I want the world to understand something. Number one, and correlating back to our conversations here, I think we're suggesting that the solution for COVID symptoms and shedding is not the deficiency of a vaccine. Is that true? Like, there's no deficiency of mRNA vaccines, right? So we can avoid all those. And yes, we want to educate people on the shedding stuff. I will tell you, based on your story of traveling around all of wherever you were all over the world, it sounds like all over Europe, that 150,000 people you're exposed to, I just need you to know something. It was established back in May of 2020 that there's these surgical masks that would have protected you if you'd have wore it everywhere you went and you'd never, ever had any kind of exposure. That's number one. PPE supposedly works, even though we haven't seen that be the case. And then number two, you're in luck, Dr. Group. If you didn't hear, there's these new bivalent COVID-19 vaccines that are coming out in the fall that contain the alpha and the current strains you were just exposed to all over Europe. So, yay. Okay, just so you know, those things ain't going to work either. They're dangerous. Don't inject them inside of you. This is a farce. It's dangerous, deadly. I would never, ever recommend a soul receive any of these vaccines ever. I do want you to mention, though, here, because I love solutions and real answers. When you and I were at Dr. Buttar's event, the Advanced Medicine Conference in San Antonio, Buttar was super thrilled over the venom aspect of the weaponizing of venom I was exposing on the world because it fit perfectly into what you were learning and sharing with him could be a possible answer to helping to diffuse the mass trauma to our DNA using urine therapy. So there was tons of documentation. Now, just so you know, he wouldn't even tell me what it was you were going to talk about, and that was fine. I was just excited to show up and continue to articulate truth as I found it and discovered it. And God, I believe, was leading me to expose all of this information to people. And maybe we should touch on this real quick. But your presentation, I thought, was phenomenal. And you put together 2 years worth of research, like you just mentioned, supporting over the last 5,000 years at least documented that the success of you in using urine therapy could be this elixir for life and helping to rid the body of many diseases. And I would absolutely encourage them to actually go and look at all that documentation and research. If you didn't buy or purchase the Advanced Medicine Conference actual presentations like Dr. Buttar and I had actually shared with the world, you mentioned a website. Give the website information again because I think it's important people know where to find this info.
I mean, I would agree with you. I would think the best thing anybody could do is buy the AMC 2022 conference because the information is, if you've been to many different conferences, a lot of people go to the same conferences, this could change your life. I mean, your information that you presented, our information was very similar because you were presenting information on the venom, the toxins, and the urotherapy. That's you can get bit by a king cobra and drink your own. You have the antibodies and the antivenom produced within 15 seconds within your body. And there's multiple documentation that I showed during that presentation of case studies. And remember that in Brazil and in South America and in India, people go into the jungles all the time. They get bit by poisonous snakes. They don't have hours to get out and go to a hospital, and they don't have antivenom with them. What they do is they drink their own urine. Yes, you're going to swell up, you're going to get inflamed, you're going to have a fever, but you will survive. And that's because your body produces every single thing it needs to heal itself. And it's one of the best, urine works one of in the best ways for neutralizing poisons and toxins in the system. And it's been used successfully. I say it's the most guarded medical secret that's ever out there. Like, the one thing they don't want you to ever find out is that you can drink your urine and pretty much eliminate any single health condition that you have. And the website is urotherapyresearch.com. I've got all the conditions from A to Z. clinical reports. Urine therapy has been studied by major universities, Harvard University. It's been written up in all kinds of different journals for years and years and years. It's not something gross. It's not something unique. Most pharmaceuticals have some form or agent from human urine in them. Do your own research and find what I found out there, because this could save your life. This can save millions and millions of lives.
Well, I'm absolutely
So
convinced
that's what I
of the
wanted
same.
to share.
Yep, I would too. And remember, for anybody going out there, since we're just doing this here, I'm sure you've got one too. But I told Butar said, make sure the audiences know about a discount code of capital ARDIS. That's my name. So go there and download those conferences and have them. I'm telling you, it was a phenomenal. And I loved Butar's intention that he spent behind putting people in order, a specific order of speakers to build a narrative, which ended with me, Butar, then you doing final presentations for the weekend, which was really well done, I thought, and I really enjoyed how he laid that out. It started, just so you know, with the 9/11 conspiracy and works its way through to urine therapy with you, which was phenomenal. So the truth is, you've all been lied to, and on a massive scale, and many of us, thank God, have been awakened to that and have seen that and recognized that. So, Dr. Gold, I would just like to say to you, I appreciate all you've done in the past. When you keep bringing up the reference of the year of like 1995 and being involved in this work, I just want you to know, every time you say 1995, what I recall in my brain is, I go just like this every time you say that. Man, he's been in this since I was a senior in high school. I was not looking at this stuff when I was a senior in high school. I graduated in 1995. I was busy playing basketball 24/7. That's all I cared about. But I really do admire that you spent so much time, decades now, looking into this research. And I want to ask you one question before I make my next statement and assumption. Dr. Gold, do you believe you know everything in the universe that people need to know to stay healthy? Do you believe you have all the answers?
I'm learning every single day. Anyone who thinks they have all the answers, there's so much information. I continue to learn every single way. No, there's no way. No, there's no way.
God.
I mean, I wouldn't trust anybody that thinks that they know everything. I mean, I've been on a spiritual journey for 20 something years and I'm still learning. I mean, I've been on a health journey for 25 years. I still feel like I'm in kindergarten sometimes. I feel like there's a vast amount of knowledge. I've studied Paracelsus works on alchemy and product development. And that's why I'm like a crazy scientist with our supplements, because we use all glass vessels, and our scrapers were custom formed from the Stonehenge quarry, and want to do the highest vibrational supplements, and they're all raw, and they get the finest herbs from everywhere in the world. And it's just like I'm just still feel like a baby when it comes to learning. And so there's just so much to learn. There's so much to share. And that's why we change up our programs all the time. It's like, if you're seeing a doctor that's still doing the same thing for like more than like 2 or 3 years, probably, then you should probably find another doctor, because they're not staying up with the research. They're not staying up with the changes. Who knew about the successes of ivermectin before the pandemic? Right? I thought ivermectin was just a pharmaceutical. And even when I was on the team and they were saying, I was the one putting the protocols together with the supercharged nano onion, the supercharged C60, the iodine, the quercetin phytosomes, the Paratrex, the anti-parasiticals and all that stuff, and the plant-based zinc and all that stuff. And then they were recommending the hydroxychloroquine and the ivermectin, but I wasn't ever using that in our protocols. And we were still getting 100% success. But my mind, this is the thing, my mind was saying to me, that's a pharmaceutical, don't look into it. And I had to learn from that. It was a big lesson. I finally sat down, I caught myself, and I sat down and I said, you know what, I need to not judge. I need to look at everything. And then I started diving into the research about how ivermectin was found, the Japanese scientists, and how it actually came from the soil, which was a natural soil-based microorganism made by God. And so that was a huge learning phase for me. I just had another huge learning phase over the last 2 years, looking into urotherapy and doing all the research on that. So, I mean, I love to learn, like you, like you're a research scientist. it, you get these aha moments when it's just like pieces come together and it's like, what, whoa.
Yep, it's
And then all of a
phenomenal.
sudden you're like, this is incredible. Wow, this could save the world.
For example, let me share with you something. I just wanted to make sure the world understood this as they watch this, and this lives in infamy online for infinity. I just wanted people to know. I don't believe I actually know everything in the entire world history of knowledge when it comes to healing, health, wellness, spirituality, all of it. I just want to acknowledge that neither does Dr. Gold, or Dr. Group, sorry, that he doesn't feel that same way either. But man, do we love learning. And so as I learn and get excited, I just want to share that stuff with everybody. Like, that's just what I'm fascinated by. So I have known about Royal Rife for decades and have loved his work in research. I've known about Tesla and read many books on his stuff. Even I was learning from you today about Tesla and his understudies, and I was like, I don't even think I knew those people. That's phenomenal. So this is my question for you. I want to acknowledge, Dr. Group, that I don't know everything. And I hope everyone in my audiences knows that I don't know everything. So I would love the opportunity for you to come back and educate our audiences on topics that I find of interest, that I still think, even from history, from the late 1800s, early 1900s, that this stuff can still help us today. And I would love to learn more about your products, your standard of quality and excellence in those production of those things, because I am fascinated with providing things that actually work to improve the lives of people around the world and free them from the bondage of symptoms and disease. So if you're open to that, I would love to continue that and educate them as much as possible on the things that will be new to me and make those new to them. And if you're up to that, I would love that opportunity.
I would love that opportunity too. I had a blast with you today on doing everything, and so I would love to explain some of the stuff. Like we just about a year ago started the first quantum testing laboratory in the United States at our facility, because for me it's all about producing products with the highest vibrational energy and life force in them. And I'll close with this, just so everybody knows out there, if you're taking any supplements, contact the contract manufacturer and ask them if they're NSF certified. If they're NSF certified, find another facility. We went through, this is something I just learned a couple years ago. We went through NSF certification at our facility, passed with flying colors. We built the first fully organic facility in the United States. We used magnesium oxide for sheetrock, first facility in the world ever to do that. We reinvented epoxy flooring that would not emit VOCs. Like I said, we use all glass vessels instead of metal vessels. We do, I'm just crazy about, the type of quality that we need to produce. And so we got all the way through the whole NSF qualification. They said, okay, there's two things that you're not doing that everybody else in the industry is doing. First of all, you're not sterilizing your raw materials before they come out of quarantine. Okay, how do you sterilize raw materials? You do steam sterilization, or you do microwave or EMF-based sterilization. I said, are you crazy? Why would I sterilize my raw materials? That's going to kill all the life force in them. It's going to degrade them all. It's going to ruin them all. And they said, okay, we can get by with that. That's fine. You don't have to do that. But you do have to do this. You have to put a metal detection system on the end of all your finished goods lines. 98% of all dietary supplement manufacturers have a metal detection system on the end of their finished goods line. And listen, I've got Dr. Glenn Ryan. He's the top quantum physicist and biologist in the world. He works full-time at our quantum testing laboratories. And he's the one that does all the quantum vibrational testing and Kirlian and all that on different types of scalar wave devices and different types of energy devices he's been doing. He's like 78 years old right now. He's the leading scientist. We're developing and quantifying a way to test the life force in products right now. And I literally said, to NSF, are you telling me that pretty much every dietary supplement manufacturer out there is radiating the products once they've been bottled and they go through the X-ray machine? There's two types of metal detection systems that are sold to dietary supplement companies: X-ray and EMF, high-level EMF, like the body scanners that you go through. So basically, all the products go through these things and then they get shipped out. Now, you can still have placebo effects, and you can still have maybe a little bit of benefits from them. But it's rearranging the molecular components. Now, I believe that that was set up on purpose by Big Pharma to infiltrate the dietary supplement companies. So I, after spending $100,000 with NSF, kicked them out the door and said, I will never put a metal detection system on the end of our finished goods line. So
That's awesome.
we'll end it there.
I love that. All right. So Dr. Gold, or Dr. Group, tell them about your Global Healing Institute.
So the Global Healing Institute is something that we started about 2 years ago because we have so many requests from people that, look, there's many, many people that are sick right now. There's many people that are dying because of the shedding, because of the shots. And there's a lack of people, doctors and health coaches and people out there that really know what they're doing, that can guide them through a recovery. So with the Global Healing Institute, what I wanted to do is I wanted to provide them with all of the research that we've had and done over the years, starting with the root cause of disease, why they have the condition they have. And then I have a whole course on parasites. I have a whole course on happiness, how to be, the secrets to happiness. I have a whole course on vibrational frequencies and energies and how you can increase your vibrations and your energies in the body. And really an easy method to where somebody could feel comfortable being their own doctor, which ultimately I think that's, one of my missions is to help as many people as I can, like you, but to teach people how to be confident in healing themselves and teach people what's causing their conditions and teach people how to not live in fear and how to not live in a negative emotional state.
I love it. Can you give the website address for people to go find you, track you, stalk you? Where would you like them to stalk you at?
Globalhealing.com. Globalhealing.com. There's courses on there. The Global Healing Institute has actually worked into the same website, globalhealing.com. You can follow me on YouTube at Dr. Group.
That's awesome. Dr. Group, thank you. I look forward to many, many opportunities in the future for us to educate, warn, and inspire the world. Truly, you're a hero to me. So thank you very much for all you do. This is
Thank you.
For the Dr. Artist Show. We're going to be signing off. Dr. Group, you're the man. Thank you very much. Anything else you'd like to say to the audience in the way of hope or articulate any kind of hope to them?
Listen to Dr. Artist and know that you have the power to heal yourself. Study up. There's going to be times, if you're listening to this, you're probably already starting your educational journey. And there's going to be a lot of people out there. You're already a healer. And you might be necessary to help heal other people. So learn as much as you can about this. Learn about how to educate people. Learn about how to heal yourself, educate yourself. And just know that we're going through a time right now that I believe is a great awakening. And in order to go to a great awakening, you have to go through a period of pain and suffering and trauma. It's just like people that are addicted to drugs, and I've interviewed them and they've gone to 20 different rehab centers for 20 years, and then they've been clean for 10 years. And I'm saying, well, what was it? What was the one thing that changed with you? Why are you not using anymore? And they would always say, I had to lose everything. I had to hit rock bottom. I had to go through the most pain, the most suffering, and the most trauma that I've ever had to go through. And that changed my life and turned me around. And that's what we're going through right now. Many people, some people are going different levels of trauma. So we talked about vibrations and frequencies. If you're awake and you know the truth, you're vibrating high. If you're not awake and you don't know the truth and you're watching CNN all day long, your vibrations are very, very low. But regardless, you have the power to heal yourself. And there's hope, and you have the power to transition to a higher consciousness. Just focus on yourself and make the commitment to better yourself and live a happy and healthy life.
That's awesome. You're awesome. And I do want people to know that I actually was listening to one of your videos, a 3-minute video on your site the other day, and you were talking about moments in which you've recently experienced anxiety, and then you introspectively looked to find out where was that coming from, only to find out you were spending more time on social media than normal, and this is creating anxiety and hype. And I will tell you, there's moments where that happens to me. And when I was listening to that presentation, I was like, that's really funny. There's a few days ago where I was starting to get anxious and overwhelmed. And it was in an email group that they call like a C19 group, where scientists, doctors all around the world were all a part of these big email groups, and they're all sharing articles. There's like 1,000 emails that come in there every day. I can't look at all of them, but as I'm looking at the titles, I started feeling anxious. And I was like, I got to get off this thing. So I used to say, if you want the pandemic to end and all your stress and anxiety and panic and fear, turn off your TV. Well, after listening to your thing, I was like, man, people need to turn off their social media, their emails, whatever it is that's creating the anxiety. There are much things outside in your environment that you're letting into your internal environment that are causing that anxiety. And those are some of the things, some of the truths you'll learn. Study up, follow Dr. Group, and listen to us here at the Dr. Artist Show. And we're going to be bringing in more and more often, I'm hoping and praying, to educate you guys on things that can help you heal and help your frequencies to become heightened. Because as your frequencies become less, your living becomes less. All right, I'm Dr. Artist. We're going to sign off. Thank you, Dr. Group, again. Hope you have a great and blessed day, and continue the good fight, man. Stay educated and be a truth seeker. That's what I call myself. I'm always looking for truth, man. All right, You guys are great. I'm Dr. Artist, and let me just wrap this up with the sponsors. You can sign off if you're ready, Dr. Group. I will be in touch with you by text. Thank you for all you do, buddy. All right, so the last sponsors for this show are KirkElliottPhD.com. Go there if you've got money you're worried about that people are trying to screw you with and the economy's trying to be destroyed. Go to KirkElliottPhD.com and consult with them. Free consultations. See if he can help you figure out how to manage your money, save your money. He's doing a great job for people around the world. And then the next sponsor is, whichever one's coming up on the screen here, that would be H2Bev.com. Go to H2Bev.com and start your day like I do every day. And I'm not even joking. My wife and I both start every day and every morning with Hydro Shot on an empty stomach. They taste good. They bring nitric oxide and improve blood flow throughout your body for up to 8 hours, proven in studies. Doctor is the promo code DOCTOR for 10% off there. DrStellaMD.com. Go there for any prescriptions you may need, like ivermectin you just heard us talk about with Dr. Group. If you want any of her books, go to DrStellaMD.com. Use the promo code DOCTOR also for 5% off of anything there. All right. And now, PCI, parasitetesting.com. We just talked about a bunch of parasites. You know what to do. Go to parasitetesting.com. First tab on the test tab. Click and purchase the full GI panel and bacterial swab. Also at thedrartistshow.com, at our podcast show site, you can actually click on parasite tests underneath the shop tab. It actually will take you directly to this page where you can order that test kit and start to finally realize what kind of organisms, what kind of parasites, fungi, bacteria, parasites are living in your body, using you as a host to nourish them while they create disease and symptoms inside of you. All right, and then GrowMaxWaterHydro.com. Every word in the dictionary, GrowMaxWaterHydro.com. Use the promo code DOCTOR there. 10% off on filtering your water for your gardens through a hose. Super easy, super efficient at removing glyphosate, fertilizers, toxins, maybe even graphene oxide out of your water being filtered into your plants. All right, I'm Dr. Artist. We're out. I hope you enjoyed this segment with us. Stay safe, stay warned. We will see you next time.
Disclaimer. Please note, the following presentation is solely for informational purposes and should not be seen as a replacement for advice provided by your physician. It is important not to rely on the information from this presentation for diagnosis, treatment, medication prescription, or any other form of medical care. Always consult with your physician or healthcare professionals before taking any medication, nutritional supplement, herbal remedy, homeopathic treatment, or pursuing any health-related procedure. If you have a medical condition or believe you might have one, promptly contact your healthcare provider. Do not disregard professional medical advice or delay seeking it based on this presentation's information as the products or services purchased from it do not establish a doctor-patient relationship between you and any affiliated physicians. Statements about dietary supplements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration and are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.